Senator Chris Eaton was elected to the Senate in a 2011 special election and has played a crucial role in tackling opioid abuse. She recently announced her intention to retire, and I spoke with her this week about some of the key provisions she championed to combat the opioid epidemic. You came to the legislature to do something about opioid abuse, at least in part, because your daughter died tragically of an overdose in 2007. Because of your efforts, first responders now carry naloxone or Narcan, which can reverse an overdose. That 2014 law also exempts someone from prosecution on drug charges if they go for help. These two things would likely have saved your daughter's life. Is it some consolation knowing that future lives may have been saved?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I enjoy the opportunity to reflect a little bit. Yes, I think that we've saved thousands of lives. In fact, I know there were over 90,000 overdoses that were reversed in the last couple of years. But unfortunately, there were also 1,500 opioid deaths. There were only 50 in the state of Minnesota the year my daughter died. So we're not making progress per se. We're saving a lot of lives, but the epidemic continues to take a lot of, so there's like 1,500 families who are going through what I went through. And that doesn't make me feel better, but I'm glad that we're saving lives.
You were also co-sponsor of a bill that became law in 2019, and it was considered groundbreaking at the time. It established a licensing and registration fee on opioid manufacturers and distributors to raise money to address the impacts of opioid abuse. The law also created the Opioid Epidemic Response Advisory Council, which is often just called ORAC, and you have been a member of that council. Is this a good way of determining needs, of raising funds and determining needs and distributing funding to try to turn this tide on opioid abuse?
Well, I think it's a tool. I think it's making a difference in some areas. Unfortunately, the process of having to come up and with a, you have to file for a grant. And writing a grant is not something the average person is very adept at. So a lot of the money is going to the areas that were already being funded by established organizations who can afford a grant writer. So that's my objection to the process. But otherwise, I think a lot more of the funds are going to more local needs. I would like the Department of Human Services, Department of Health, to take a little more of a stronger lead in using the science to find ways, especially now with fentanyl. And I think that we're still treating it like it's over-prescribing causing it all. And I don't really think that's the issue anymore.
What do you think is the issue now?
It's the fentanyl, the carfentanil, all the synthetic opioids that are on the market that are being played. I mean, people are punching out like Percocets and oxycodone and whatever in their basements that look identical to the manufactured pills, and they're selling them. And a lot of the people, especially those like we're talking, intractable pain is one of the fallouts from this whole thing. And those people are buying them off the street, and they think they're buying a Percocet or a oxycodone, and what they're getting is a lot of fentanyl, and the amount of fentanyl in them is killing people.
And so to go back just a step, you would like to see more grassroots efforts, more local efforts to get some of this funding in order to do more to try at the ground level, really, to try to reverse this trend.
Yes, especially like in the Somali community, the young people there are really trying to fight this, and they're being, devastated by this opioid epidemic. And but their culture won't let them really talk about it with the adults in the community. And so, but they don't have the wherewithal to write a grant. so they can't get this funding. So it kind of frustrates me that those type of things aren't available. And I would like more outside the traditional treatment. I mean, most of our treatment is focused around how we've always done the alcohol treatment, the 12 steps, which, hey, it works. I'm a person in recovery and it worked for me, but I wasn't using opioids. It's a totally different situation.
Well, speaking of money that is coming in, Governor Walz just signed into law a bill that designates how Minnesota's $300 million portion of a multi-state settlement with some opioid manufacturers and distributors will be dispersed, 75% to cities and counties and 25% to the state. And you referenced this, the Department of Health opioid overdose dashboard. Overdose deaths and non-fatal overdoses have risen sharply in the last couple years. So how might some of this influx in funding help?
Well, I'm really excited that the outcome was what I was hoping it would be. 75% of that money is going to go into local governments and into local communities where they know what their issues are, boots on the ground, and they can use that money to deal with it in their community instead of us trying to guess from St. Paul. And I'm excited about that. I think that they'll be able to get some of that money out to people who can't write grants and who really need resources. I'm hoping that some of it goes to education. I mean, the kids in the schools need to know that if they're going to buy marijuana or cocaine or whatever on the street, it's probably got fentanyl in it and it could kill them. And that's, those kind of public service announcements need to be done. I've been trying to push ORAC to do a public service campaign, but I don't know if they're gonna. But that's what needs to happen. We need to educate people, so kind of on the scale we did with smoking. I thought that was a really well done campaign, and something like that needs to happen. This is not something you can survive recreational use of.
One other thing that you had a hand in was cracking down on the prescribing of opioids by medical professionals. And we've spoken in the past about how the views of pain treatment have changed over time. I remember that you telling me on this program that, pain is a good thing. It tells us about how our body is doing. And so the complete removal of it is not necessarily a good thing. Because of the prescription monitoring system, are doctors prescribing more effectively now?
I think so. And I think a lot of it has to do with the education and the public awareness of the dangers of taking opioids, where it used to be kind of routine that if you had any kind of pain, that's what you got. And I think they're doing a better job. Some are still overprescribing, of course, and but for the most part, things are calming down. A lot of doctors became very concerned with being monitored and cut off a lot of people, which was very sad. So I think they're getting more comfortable with the monitoring, and I think the prescribing is improved. That was a long process, the opioid prescribing worker.
Yes, it was. Before we go, you are retiring from the Senate, and we've been talking about your contributions to curb the scourge of opioid abuse. And this may be perhaps your biggest legacy, but for you personally, what are you most proud of and what will you miss?
I think besides the opioid work, I'm really proud of the work I did in the environment. I think I helped stop a lot of bad legislation, and it didn't necessarily get a lot of good stuff across the line, but and my protection of the wolf population has been really important to me. But the environment, climate change has been an issue for me long before it was, what do you want to call it, but so my family was always very strong into preserving the natural environment, and recycling and all that. So yeah, and what I'm going to miss is probably the people. I've really developed some good friendships on both sides of the aisle. I've worked really closely with Julie Rosen on all my opioid bills, and Representative Dave Baker, and both Republicans, and then of course all my Democrat colleagues that we've worked hard on lots of issues. Human services, I spent 40 years in mental health as a nurse, and not all of it as a nurse, but so fixing some of the mental health laws and requirements was one of my early projects. So I've worked closely with NAMI and Sue Aberholden, and I think we've made some good progress.
Senator Chris Eaton, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.